Hello everyone, so Kim here and welcome to my channel Native Lady Book Warrior. So I have a really awesome video today because I am announcing that I will be hosting a readathon in November. So yeah, keep watching and you'll get all the details. So Vituave, welcome. Let's get started. I am so excited for this video. I don't know. I'm feeling all kinds of feelings. I'm feeling excited, a little nervous and scared, but I think overall I'm just so excited because I never thought I would ever be in this space to just be doing something. I feel like for me, this just feels pretty big. I'm going to scoot over a little bit so I can put right here. So yours truly, Kim, I will be hosting an Indigenous readathon that will be called Skoden Readathon 2022. So yes, all right. So first of all, I just really want to thank the book community, especially my book friends who really pushed me to fill in this space, not only to talk about Indigenous reads, but just to be participating in this reading community overall. I know sometimes it could be hectic. It could be a lot. I mean, like, just look at me. I just barely came back and I'm already jumping into this pretty extreme readathon. But anyway, yeah, so Skoden Readathon is a readathon where we challenge ourselves and we dip into Indigenous reads for the entire month of November. So I just want to say that this readathon starts first thing November 1st, midnight, all the way to November 30th at 11:59 p.m. So I encourage all of you to participate. And yes, I do have reading prompts. I'll be explaining them next. But first of all, I just want to say Skoden is just this native term. It's so wide of what it can mean, but basically it's like, let's go then. So come on, like encouragement. There's other like meanings for it, but me, for this readathon, it's just mean, let's go, Skoden, let's get this started. That's how I came up with the name for this readathon. And I just want to say that it's open to the entire community. If you read a book, if you're a reader, you don't have to be a booktuber, you don't have to be a bookstagrammer, you can just be a person who enjoys reading, but instead you will focus on Indigenous authored reads for the month of November. So yes, I'm very excited. Okay, so let's get into these prompts. And I also have some announcements at the end if you want to stay for that. But if you're just here to hear what these prompts are going to be, then that's fine as well. Oh yes, I forgot to mention, as you can see, the Skoden Readathon graphics right here, the Hopi girl, the Hopi mana who has her hair up in beautiful Hopi whirls. Those graphics were actually created by my daughter. Yeah, so everybody's complimenting me on the graphics, but I had no, I had no hand in making them. Those were all by my daughter. And I asked her, I was like, hey, do you think you can create a little bit, maybe a graphic or a logo for me for this readathon? And she's like, yeah. And she wouldn't even show them to me until they were completed. But wow, aren't they beautiful? So, okay. Let's get to these prompts. So of course she created another amazing graphic right here. And here is the bingo board. So the first prompt that I have on here for Skoden Readathon 2022 is queer rep or two-spirit representation. So that could either mean that the book has a main character that is Indigenous and queer, or Indigenous and two-spirit. So let me remind you that that term two-spirit is only used by the Indigenous community. So just a reminder there. But not all Indigenous communities go by two-spirit. So I just want to throw that out there. For this prompt, you can have a main character that is Indigenous and queer, or you can have the author who can be an Indigenous queer author. It could be a two-spirit author. So an example I can think of off the top of my head is Joshua Whitehead is a two-spirit Indigiqueer author. So that is an example. The second prompt. So everybody has been asking me about this prompt. They're like, what is Omau book cover? So this is Omau. Omau and Hopi means cloud. So this is the Hopi cloud right here. I actually, right when you go onto my videos and you click on it, the Hopi cloud or Omau is right behind where it says Native Lady Book Warrior. So yes, so the colors, the book cover, remember all these reads have to be authored by Indigenous authors, okay? So just putting that out there, remember that. But also the second prompt, Omau book cover, it means that you have to have a book cover that's yellow, black, red, or blue. So blue, turquoise, that can kind of, I mean, you all are okay, like going within the spectrum of colors. Like it doesn't have to be yellow. Maybe you can get away with a little bit of orange. So for instance, Night of the Living Rez by Morgan Talty, the background right here is blue. So that is an Omau color. It's part of the blue cloud. But you also have a little bit of red in here, and I imagine you can do that. So it doesn't always, the whole book doesn't have to be blue. The whole book doesn't have to be black. It could be a mix of colors. Right here, I have Sinister Graves. This has yellow. This also has a little bit of dark black down here. So just as long as you read books that have coloring, and it could be a mix of coloring, it doesn't have to be the entire book. It could be red, black, blue, and yellow. Yes. So the third prompt, I also got questions on this on Instagram, beyond the lower 48. So that prompt specifically means that I encourage you to read Indigenous lit that is outside the mainland United States. So the 48 states within mainland US. So that means you can read books where the Indigenous authors are from Alaska, Hawaii, Australia, South America. So and also maybe the Maori community and Canada, of course, if I hadn't already said Canada. I encourage you all to read Indigenous authors that are not located or from the mainland United States. Not located, but their indigenous nations aren't in the lower 48 states. Okay, so this next one, it's pretty straightforward. Short story versus poetry. So that just means that you can read an Indigenous short story collection, or you can also read Indigenous books that are written in verses, right? And then you can also read Indigenous poetry collections. There are so many incredible Indigenous poet short stories out there. I think a recent one that I just read, Love After the End, an anthology of Two-spirt indigiqueer speculative fiction. So this actually covers more than one prompt, but it also is a short story collection. So there's so many authors in here. So the next prompt is a 7-day challenge, and people have asked me on this also. So basically, all I want you to do is just read consistently for 7 days, back to back to back to back, only Indigenous authored lit. It does not count. For instance, if you read Indigenous lit for a whole day, and then the next day, maybe you participate in a readathon, and then you go back to Indigenous lit. No, that is not the case. It's just reading for 7 days straight, Indigenous authored lit, day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, day 7, for 1 week. If you're reading other lit during this time, unfortunately, that is not going to go towards the 7-day challenge. So this is interesting because I kind of put this in the middle of this bingo board over here. So you can read any kind of Indigenous author lit. There's no specific genre that you have to fall into. So for instance, if there's genre on this board that doesn't meet your requirements, instead you can pick books, any genre books by any author from any whatever, and all you have to do, and you can, so it's kind of like an interesting free space where it's not really easy, but it's challenge too. It's a challenge. So you would have to read Indigenous authored lit from day 1 to all the way to day 7. And it can only be Indigenous authored lit. Yeah, so it's an interesting free space where I'm not limiting it to a specific genre, a specific author, or specific representation, but I am challenging you all to just read, of course, 7 days straight. So yes, that is an interesting, when I was thinking about this bingo board, I was like, how can I make this interesting where it's kind of flexible, but it's also difficult? So yeah, I was really excited about that prompt. Okay, so the next prompt is an unread Indigenous author. So basically, this doesn't mean a Indigenous book by an author that you have not read. No. For instance, we all know, for example, the Indigenous author Louise Erdrich has a whole bunch of works out there. But let's say you read, what do I have? Let's say you read The Sentence. I have it behind here. But you haven't read Love Medicine. That's not the same thing. So you have to read a book by an author that you have not read before. So an unread author. So there's so many Indigenous authors out there. So if you already read from that author, it does not count. But so just read an author that's new to you, an author maybe that you've always wanted to read, but you haven't read before. So yes, that's what unread Indigenous author means. This next prompt, I'm so excited for this one because I need to do some work to also read from this specific prompt. And that prompt is middle grade and children's Indigenous literature. And I really need to read more, and I enjoy it. I love middle grade. I never used to read middle grade, but I started reading it this year, and it's wonderful. Another Indigenous booktuber that you can look to if you want to get more into this is Michelle. They have so much Indigenous authored lit from middle grade and children's books. Another one that I also follow to get recommendations is Ashley from Bookish Realm. She has so many middle grade and children's and Indigenous authored lit that she reads. So that's another one. So, okay. All right, moving on. This next prompt, and I have to tell you right now, I am actually participating in Black Readathon, which is another readathon that is hosted and put together brilliantly by Bree from Lock Booktition, from Book Channel Lock Booktition. It's such an amazing readathon, and I love it. And this prompt, honestly, even though I have Indigenous authors in it, me coming up with this prompt was very much inspired by Bree, because Bree loves this genre or these genres. And I was like, you know what? I'm dedicating this prompt to Bree. You'll see why. So the next prompt is SGJ, Rendon, and Weiden. So of course, SGJ, the Indigenous father of horror, Indigenous horror, is one. Rendon is Marcy R. Rendon. As you can see, the book behind me, Sinister Graves, that came out just recently this past week. She writes, an Indigenous author that writes mystery, specifically the Cash Black Bear series. And Weiden. So David Haskell Wombley Weiden recently wrote, I think in 2020 or 2021, a crime thriller, and he wrote an amazing book called Winter Counts. So this prompt is named after them, but very much inspired by Bree. And that prompt, of course, again, is SGJ, Rendon, and Weiden. So there's another prompt for you all that I hope you all enjoy. Okay, and lastly, since November, of course, November, there's a whole bunch of readathons happening at this time. And one of those that I participate in is Nonfiction November. So I have the nonfiction prompt on here. Of course, that nonfiction read has to be authored by an Indigenous author. Last year for Nonfiction November, I read The Heartbeat of Wounded Knee by David Trur. I also read a couple of memoirs that I enjoyed also. I think one of them was Lakota Woman. And I think I even reread Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmer. Amazing book. So yes, just wanted to have you all be able to, if you're participating in Nonfiction November, to hit both of those prompts while you're also participating in Skoden Readathon. Okay, and the last prompt. The last prompt is a bonus prompt. So we're gonna look at the middle of the bingo board. So you can see the middle of the bingo board over here, and that bingo board is short story versus poetry, 7-day challenge, and unread author. So if you read the bonus prompt, you will be able to cross off one of those prompts if you complete the bonus prompt. But, okay, here's the kicker. For you to claim that bonus prompt, you have to complete at least one of those prompts in that middle row on that lateral. So for instance, if you complete the bonus prompt and you are able to read from an unread Indigenous author and you cross that out, right? And you read the bonus prompt, then without completing the 7-day challenge or the short story versus poetry, you can cross off one of those X's. And simply all you have to do, so like to show it on whether if it's Instagram or whatever, or you just switch the bonus prompt with short story versus poetry, or switch it with 7-day challenge, or you switch it with unread Indigenous author. But you have to complete at least one of those prompts in that row. I know I was trying to think about a way where you can use the bonus prompt within the bingo board. So that's just one way. Or let's say for Indigathon, you're so swept up in Nonfiction November because you love Nonfiction November. And let's say that you only have time for the rest of November to read one Indigenous book, and that is a graphic novel. That is awesome. That is fine. Okay, so I believe I am done like explaining all these prompts to you. And I just want to say that whether if you complete one prompt or none of these prompts at all, and you just end up reading an Indigenous authored book on your own, that is awesome. I would be so happy even if you read one Indigenous book for Skoden Readathon. And it's because I'm not saying that Indigenous authored lit should only be read in November, because that is not the case. Indigenous authored lit should be read all year round. And that's simply what this readathon is here to do. It is here to encourage you to read and discover and find new Indigenous authored books, to find more Indigenous bookstagrammers or Indigenous businesses. Or let's say you go on you discover a new Indigenous bookstagrammer and you see that on their feed, not only are they promoting Indigenous authored lit, but let's say they're also supporting Indigenous businesses. That is awesome too. I just want this to be a platform and a time where people who read Indigenous lit find one another, they network, they also discover new books and new reads to read after November. So please don't get discouraged if you don't finish your Skoden TBR, because you then have some amazing books to read for the rest of the year. So I just want to say, just reach high. Even if you have like a 20 book TBR, that is amazing, because then if you don't finish those books, you have books that you can read for the rest of the year, right? So yes, I just want to say also that during, from now until the beginning of November, I'll have book friends who will also be recommending videos of Indigenous authored lit they enjoy, or they recommend, or they are going to read for their TBRs for Skoden Readathon. So I just want to say, look out for that, look out for the content. And also I'll be, myself, I'll be recommending reads as well from now until then, and then also vlogging during that time. And I'll also have some pretty cool announcements for you all from now till then. I just want to end this with a huge thank you to not only the Indigenous reviewer community, who has like pretty much pushed me and encouraged me to build up this space to just continue with Booktube, but also Bookstagram, but also all of my other friends. I think Bree is a huge one. Bree from Lockbooktician. Wow, I love you. I know you were the one who was really pushing me. I was like, I wonder if I should I? And then Bree was just like, yes, do it. I'll support you. So I just want to say thank you so much, Bree. Also to a lot of other booktubers out there like Bookish Realm and Stephanie Bookish. And God, there's just too many names for me to name. Also Jessie from Bow Ties and Books. I just have so many people who have supported me in this space. So I think I'm going to leave it there. Because I got to get this video out. And again, I hope you all having a very wonderful day. I hope you are safe. I hope you're doing well. Read Fierce Relatives. And I can't wait to see what you all are reading. And yeah, so I shall talk to you all later. Thank you for watching this video. And yeah, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.